Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for being with us today at Oceania Catholic Homeschooler. It is our privilege to be able to hear from you. So, firstly, how long have you been homeschooling and how many of your kids have you homeschooled?
Okay, so I started homeschooling about 20 years ago, um,
Wow.
and we have finished homeschooling five of them, and still have four. Yeah, four to go, age 7, 12, 14, and 17.
Wow, that's a long time. So, what first prompted you to decide to homeschool?
Okay, so when our oldest son was approaching, 4, 5, I really sort of started feeling quite restless about the idea of sending him to school. I was more and more feeling reluctant to do that, and I just all the learning that we'd done ever since the day he'd been born, right up till that time, I just wanted to carry on doing. I wanted to keep learning with him at home and with he had two little siblings by that time. And I just didn't like the idea of us sending him away to school for 6 hours a day to get an education. I thought we already have the perfect environment for education at home with the people who love him the best. And I just thought it would be really fun and a good thing to do, a good atmosphere to learn in. So, and pass on everything that we wanted to. We could design our own, way of teaching as well. So,
And
yeah.
tell me a bit more about how you found how you found the home to be a really good environment for education and how it's helped your kids to learn at home.
Well, I liked the idea that we didn't have to rush off in the morning, what I was seeing like from what I knew from my own school days and what I would see in other families that up in the morning, it's kind of a rush, sending the children off for those sort of best hours of the day when they're least likely to be tired, and getting them back at 3 o'clock when they're kind of tired and you're nearing the end of the day. And I just love the way that we could take our time at home reading a lot of books, going on excursions, just spending fun, great times together with my husband and the children, out in nature, um, learning about the Catholic faith, surrounded by, nurtured by our love. And I didn't want to hand that over to a school teacher.
Wow.
Yeah.
And can you tell me a bit more about how you have nurtured and helped educate and develop the faith in your children and how inform them in the faith through homeschooling?
Right. Well, I think the most important thing, looking back over the 20 years for passing on the faith, really has been faith of myself and my husband. That if we make God first in our hearts, then that's the basis for trying to pass the faith on to your children. And hopefully they will pick up on that, or somehow the Holy Spirit will use that to help them see an authentic faith and help it to be passed on to them, not without our own personal prayer and time with God as well, of course, and bringing that into daily life with daily prayer with the children, with Mass and the sacraments, with reading the lives of the saints, all sorts of things, helping the children um, realize there's a great cloud of witnesses around them, that the saints are watching them and helping them, trying to make that real for them. And then, yeah, just as the years go by, learning the fundamentals of the faith. And my husband has been especially really good at passing on knowledge in the area of apologetics and why we believe what we believe, why we're Catholic, why we're Catholic and not Protestant. Yeah, but
And
also having a really good relationship with Protestants as well.
because I know that some of your kids have gone on to be quite involved in the parish and in the community and to be a blessing to the wider Catholic community in that way. Do you think homeschooling has helped them and how has it helped them to be able to do that?
Yeah, well, mm, I guess we kind of feel like we've sort of tried to immerse them in the church life because we ourselves feel immersed in the church life, and somehow the Holy Spirit has just used that and worked in their lives. I'm not really quite sure how, but I guess the church has served us, and I guess they feel like they would like to serve the church in the different sacramental programs First Holy Communion and Sacrament of Confirmation. They have been through that themselves, and now they would like to help in that way as well. Yeah, I think with homeschooling, you do build up a close family identity, and it's easy to pass on the things that you think are important to them. And I think compared to then, if they were away from you for many hours a day at school and there are different viewpoints, we'll use pressures around them, trying to take them away from the faith. So homeschooling has helped in that way. It's easy to pass on what you want to your children with homeschooling. Yeah.
Wow. And because you mentioned books, and I was wondering, have there been any books that have been really helpful for you or for your children, or that you would recommend to other homeschoolers?
Well, so if we fast forward about 4 or 5 years after we started homeschooling with our oldest, and so he would have been about 9 and had 6 children then. Well, around that time, I came across some writings of some saints which really inspired me in homeschooling and in family life. So one of them would be called Story of a Family. Most people know Story of a Soul about Saint Therese of Lisieux. Well, Story of a Family is the story of her family, Zélie and Louis Martin. So that's by Father Piat. So I would really recommend that book. That was a book that really inspired me around that time, because it talks about their home life and the spirit of the home. There's chapters on that especially, and it just showed me how much they loved their children and how they wanted to bring them up close to the Lord, and how they carefully watched over their children's lives. I know that Zélie, her children said of her that she very carefully watched over her children's souls. Her training was kind and loving, but attentive and thorough. So they were careful about how they brought up their children. Even though their children were in homeschool, they were careful about the schooling they picked and the companions they spent time with. But also, they went through a lot of sorrow with the death of some of their children, their infants. And yeah, I just thought I gained strength from Zélie's writings and how she brought up. So I knew I wanted to have a family life like that. And another saint at the time that I had been reading was Saint Thomas More. And so he was a husband and a father in the 16th century. And, he was martyred under Elizabeth I, Henry VIII. And so some of his writings to do with, and some of the writings about him to do with family life. And he had 4 children from his first marriage, and after his wife died, and then he had a stepdaughter. And he had almost like a clan in his house. I think he had his elderly father living with him and other people who would come to stay. But also as his children grew up, their spouses kind of lived there, and they were quite a big clan. And I was really inspired by his family life as well. And also his children learnt at home. He had tutors for his children. He probably would have liked to teach them himself, but he was often away on business. And just reading some of the advice he would give to the tutors, the upbringing the children, he said that, it's a quote from him, he told Gonal, his tutor, to warn my children to beware of pride and haughtiness, and rather to walk in the pleasant meadows of modesty, to put virtue in the first place, learning in the second, and in their studies to esteem most whatever may teach them piety towards God, charity to all, and Christian humility in themselves. So I thought, well, that's really what I want for our family. That's what Dean and I want for our family. And his children were highly educated. His daughters were probably the most highly educated girls in England, but that wasn't the most important thing for him. It was loving God. And for him, it was really that learning was like to cultivate the soul. It was growth in itself. And it was to praise God. That learning was really important.
Wow.
And he had a very happy family life as well. I think his friend Erasmus said of his household, there seems to be a kind of fateful happiness in this house. And he also said he guides his whole household, in which there is no disturbance or strife. If such arise, he immediately appeases it and sets all right again. And I thought, well, our household is not like that, but I'd like it to be like that. I'd like there to be a sort of kind of fateful happiness in the home. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I've got off topic, but yeah. So anyway, those were two books that anyway at that time that really inspired me. And then yeah, going on to curriculum, we've used a lot of Mother of Divine Grace resources in Seton Homeschool. Yeah, resources are formed, things like that. And I also like yeah, some of Charlotte Mason's um, theories. She's was a 19th century educationalist woman. Um, yeah.
Wow. That sounds like such a great way to approach it by learning from the saints and the families of saints like Saint Therese
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
and
think you can do
Saint
any better.
Thomas More.
Yeah, I think it's really good to try and glean the wisdom of the people from long ago.
Yeah, because I suppose
Mm.
it still rings true today.
Yeah.
And on a different note, I know that your family is very into sport and athletic pursuits and that. Has that played a part in your day-to-day homeschooling life?
Yeah, well, we've always liked the children to stay active because we think that's important for health. And Dean and I were, quite sporty when we were younger. So the children usually play a winter sport, but we definitely don't like to, overdo it or have it overrunning our family life because sport nowadays can be all year round. And so you've got to decide how much you're going to do of it because it's always trying to drag you in to do more and more. But yeah, I mean, there's a few of our children, especially who have gone on to kind of excel in some of those areas, and homeschooling's been really useful for that, that they can have the time they need to train and set their day up in a way that, someone might like to train really early in the morning, and that inspires them to get into their study. Some might like to organise their day so that they've done this work by lunchtime, and then they've got the afternoon to study. And yeah, maybe just having a bit more of an individualistic look at how they might improve in their training, not just by going to their trainings, but looking at ways to get better by themselves. And our children have tried to do that. And I know that my daughter, she said that having two older brothers, she's the third with two older brothers, that really inspired her to do well in basketball. And having them around at home and getting the chance to play against them and things like that was a big help to her. Yeah.
And what are some of the other talents or pursuits that homeschooling has really helped your children be able to pursue?
Yeah, well, we've always been interested in drama. We've been part of, we've been, in drama groups and homeschool drama groups. And I just remember when the children were younger, there must have been about the four oldest, about 4, 6, 8, and 10. They, of course, absolutely loved the Narnia books, and they acted those all out. And they had to spend hours and hours planning, memorizing, acting out the Lion, Witch, in the Wardrobe, and getting costumes together and stage and things like that. And that was just a wonderful time that they could do that. It's so good for their imagination and knowledge of the book and the meaning behind the books. So that was a lot of fun. So drama and lately more music and choir. Just having the time to nurture those skills has been really good, and getting into some really good groups through homeschooling and other avenues. Yeah.
And can you tell me about how whether these groups or through those groups and extracurriculars and would social life come in? Because I know that's something that everybody jumps on when the homeschooling question comes on is like, how do they socialize? And how does that usually work in your family? How does it?
Well, I've never really been too worried about socialization. And I mean, there's so many things you could do, especially in Canterbury, that you could be doing something every day, all day, extracurricular, and that you just won't get your schoolwork done. So that's not a problem. You can do as much of that as you want. Um, so we just do what we think will be enough for that term and the things that are most valuable. So that might be swimming lessons, choir, a public speaking group, meeting together with some Catholic families or some Christian families every couple of weeks. But it's also, I think, really important to spend time at home as well. I think the greatest socialization is going on in your family and your domestic church, because you're there for the sanctification of each other. And ultimately, I feel that's where the greatest socialization has happened. On those days when we're at home and having some time to ourselves, time with God, time to think, time to do hobbies. So I've never been too worried about that, being alone or not having too many children around you. I think of Laura Ingalls Wilder, her and her sisters and their family. They were isolated for months on end, and I don't think you could say that Laura Ingalls Wilder wasn't well socialised. So that's never been a bother to me. But over the years we've kept in touch with school friends. We used to have the neighbours' children when the kids were young. The neighbours' children when we lived in town, they would often like to come over and play at our house. And if they were well behaved and they stayed at our house, then that was okay. I didn't mind that at all. I'm sure our kids got to see what school kids were like, and they were nice kids. Socialising through sport. We play for clubs, and so you get to socialise with a lot of school kids, and that's been good. But homeschooling, and some things are Catholic groups, some aren't. It's good to get a wide range, and also socialising with different age levels. And having people come into your home for dinner, that's a great way to socialise. Having adults that they don't know come to dinner and hearing what they've got to say about their life, that's great socialising as well.
Wow. And on a different note, what would be one thing that you would say was or something difficult or something challenging about homeschooling?
I thought about that. I think when I had lots of children, we had lots of children, young children under the age of 10, as most mothers would find, it's hard work, it's exhausting. You're feeding babies in the night, got toddlers that are waking up early. Your husband has to go off to work. And that was difficult. And also, I've got the benefit now of looking back and seeing how the children have come through and managed to, get to adulthood, okay. But back then you don't have that, and you doubt yourself, and you always wonder. Even today, I think, I feel like I'm not doing enough academically. That's a constant thing people think. So that was quite difficult. And also, I think having toddlers in the house, I love them so much, but they make homeschooling really hard. Like they want to join in and get up on the table and join in, and I find it hard to try and balance all of that. And for us, it was always important that every child was happy. I didn't like the toddler being unhappy. So sometimes we would just have to stop work and we're just going to go down to the park. We're just done enough schoolwork for the day. And so if there were times like that, gaps like that, I would rather that than the little ones weren't happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
that was quite
oh,
difficult,
sorry.
but that's right.
Sorry. And then the other thing is what's been your favorite thing about homeschooling?
Probably my favourite thing of homeschooling, one of the most favourite things of homeschooling would be seeing our children just become each other's best friends, enjoying the close family bond that we've had, seeing our children care for each other, love each other, become each other's best friends. Getting on well together, having happy family life. That would probably be one of my the most enjoyable thing. And of course, also seeing the children's faith grow, seeing it grow through the years, seeing that they have faith, and seeing that they have faith, meaning, joy, hope, security, love. That's grown. And I think homeschooling has helped that. Homeschooling has been able to help clear away some of the things that could have made that difficult. Spending lots of great times together, doing things as family. Yeah, it gives you a lot of freedom to do things. You're not stuck at the school. You don't have to stick to school terms if you don't want to. You can go on trips if you want to. Yeah, and learning with the children, books that I didn't read when I was a girl, things I didn't learn. My kids are teaching me now some things. And yeah, reading aloud, that would be one of the main things. Reading aloud, saying stories, reading aloud, great literature. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And one last question before we wrap up is, what's one piece of advice that you would give to every homeschooler?
One piece of advice. I'm not sure
Or it
about
could
one
be
piece
more
of
than
advice.
one, but it
Um,
doesn't have to be just one.
yeah. Well, I think as homeschooling parents, you got to realize that you're in it for the long haul, and so you don't want to burn out early on, and so you've got to look after yourself, got to look after your spouse. You want to have a strong relationship with your husband, so your children see that and they can gain security from that, and work together as a team, you and your husband. And the other really important thing is, like, as a mum, just keep replenishing your soul with good things from God, like having time with God each day, um, and doing whatever you need to do to really feel like you're growing, not only growing in your faith, but growing intellectually. Keep on learning. I think that's great. Um, or, whatever it is, you might want to do crafts or whatever hobbies. Don't stop doing those hobbies, even if you've only got a little bit of time for them. I try to do something each day. Like, I like to read something each day because I feel that just really replenishes my soul, whether it's scripture or some holy book, or like I was saying before, someone about something from the past that I can learn wisdom from. I find that exciting. Um, yeah, that would probably be, and just decide to love your vocation as a wife and mum. Decide to love it. God's put you there, so do your best to love it. Yeah, count it all joy when things go wrong, and realize that the joy of the Lord is our strength. Yeah,
It's a really
and it
beautiful
does get
reflection.
easier as you go on and you look back and you see that children have come through okay. Yeah,
Yeah. That's a really beautiful reflection.
thanks.
Thank you so much for letting me interview you.
That's okay.